friends, my name is Kim and I hope you're having a fabulous day today. If you are interested in true crime stories like I am, I hope that you consider hitting that subscribe button. But either way, thanks for being here. Every parent's dream is to watch their newborn baby grow. But what happens when the dream becomes a nightmare? Let's talk about Remy. But first, a word from today's sponsor. A few years ago, Ashley and Matt Cowan were thrown out of balance when they received a phone call from their babysitter informing them that their 16-week-old daughter wasn't breathing. She had to be kidding, right? Remy was doing perfectly fine before they left home that morning. So what exactly happened? In this video, we'll be sharing all the details of Remi Cowan's death. But before we dive into this, let's give you a bit of background history on Remy. Like any other true romance story, Ashley and Matthew Cowan met in January of 2016 and got married the following year. Ashley already had two beautiful little girls, and Matthew loved them and treated them as his own. Just a year into their marriage, the couple were blessed with another daughter named Callie, their first child together. Despite the fact that Ashley had gotten an IUD, she found out that she had gotten pregnant again, but successfully gave birth to Remy despite suffering some complications. Like any new father, Matthew easily connected with Remy and became more attached to her during that period. Weeks passed after Remy's birth and Ashley resumed work again. The young couple were forced to drop their daughters off with a babysitter named Megan, who was previously taking care of Callie. At first, Matthew had shown some reluctance about this because Megan had like a dark history, but they were convinced that she had changed because she had been taking care of Callie, so they decided to give her a chance. Some mornings when either Ashley or Matt arrived to Megan's house to drop the girls off, Megan wasn't home, so they would leave Callie and Remy with Megan's mother, Crystal, who always said Megan was at counseling and would be back, later in the day, soon. Apparently, all of her counseling appointments fell at the time that they dropped her off, whether she was at counseling or not. Regardless, there was the mom there that would watch the kids until Megan got home. By early June, the girls had been going to Megan's house for about 3 to 4 weeks. The Cohens had started to notice that Megan seemed at times very drowsy and irritable or otherwise off somehow. So they had begun transitioning Callie and Remy to a new babysitter, planning to send them to Megan's house just a few days per week in the meantime to make the switch a little bit less traumatic. So a couple days there, gradually work Megan out of the picture. On the evening of June 5th, Matt and Ashley had a disagreement that they left unsettled. So the next morning, Matt regrettably left the house without kissing his wife and his 4 girls goodbye or telling them that he loved them. He later explained that this decision would haunt him for the rest of his life, as he would never get to kiss his healthy version of his daughter again. Matt went to work as usual, laughing and joking with coworkers as he went about his job. He ended up finishing earlier than usual. So Matt stated, quote, "I told myself that since Ashley had done so much for the family in managing my crazy hours, that he was going to go ahead and pick the girls up from the babysitter so she didn't have to. But unfortunately, he would not get the chance." Backing up to that morning, Ashley took Remy and Callie to the babysitter's house and went to work like she always did. It was around 3:58 p.m. on June 6, 2019, when Ashley received a call from Megan Borges, which she was unable to answer the call right then. She returned the call only 4 minutes later. When Megan answered the phone, Ashley couldn't understand her at first.
And when I did, all I could hear was the babysitter saying, and she was purple, and she was purple. Well, as a mom, I don't know why, I just knew it was Remy that she was talking about. So I, of course, threw my phone and went running out the door and down the street, and then realized I needed my car. So I ran back to my car and then drove over to the babysitters, who, is only about a mile from where I work. And
by the same time she arrived, the ambulance was pulling away, and Ashley jumped out of the car and attempted to chase after it on foot. Megan's mother, Crystal, drove Ashley to the Williamsport Regional Medical Center, where the frantic mother ran to the ambulance in time to see one of the many EMTs gathered around a gurney administering CPR to her helpless 16-week-old daughter. Ashley later shared that the vision of her lifeless child with her arms hanging out to her sides is the most agonizing and debilitating sight she had ever witnessed. And to this day, she would say it haunts her.
I'll never forget, I ran up to the back of the ambulance, and they had the door open as they were pulling Remy out of the ambulance. And there was like 6 paramedics, and one of them had Remy, and she was giving CPR, and Remy's arms were just flown out to the side, and she just looked lifeless. And I just fell onto the ground like, this cannot be possible.
At some point during the chaos, Ashley called her husband, who was still finishing up work. Matt couldn't make sense of Ashley's screams, but he picked up out of 3 horrifying words, Remy's name and the heart-stopping sentence, "She's dead." Matt rushed to meet his wife at the hospital while Remy was whisked into the emergency room. Ashley was escorted by a hospital employee into a separate room down the hall from the area where multiple medical professionals fought to keep Remy alive. Ashley stated, quote, "I remember seeing all the nurses and physicians looking out at me as I walked by, and I started to beg them, please help her." Within 10 minutes, Matt arrived at the hospital and was led into the room, where he found his wife face down on the ground, screaming. Seconds later, a doctor entered the room, told the terrified couple that Remy still did not have a heartbeat, and asked them if they wanted to stop CPR.
Can they stop CPR? That Remy still didn't have a pulse. And I said, no, go 20, 30 days. I don't care what it is. I want my baby. And so he left the room, and about 5 minutes later, it wasn't even, the doctor came back in the room and said, "We have a pulse." And so I just felt like for a moment I had, hope that this was all going to be okay.
There's always that chance, you just never know. And as a parent, how could you make that decision? I'd rather chance it. It doesn't hurt to just keep trying. So why the doctor would even ask that is just, I don't know. Maybe some people are like, just stop. I don't know. But anyways, they were asked that question. The Cohens were allowed to spend the night with Remy, who was on a ventilator and surrounded by tubes and wires. A doctor told Ashley and Matt that Remy's organs were failing, and their precious 16-week-old baby had been given medications to paralyze her temporarily, as she had been suffering seizures as well. The couple watched in despair as Remy's brain waves were monitored by an EEG, detecting absolutely no activity. Ashley wrote, "I remember just holding her hand and telling her how much I love her. I remember questioning God and asking why he was allowing this. Her body continued to become colder and colder. I knew there wasn't a single chance that she'd return. I think she was already gone, but the Lord was giving us time to accept what couldn't be changed and say goodbye. The next morning, the Cohens were told that Remy had no brain activity and all of her organs had essentially failed. They were forced to make the unimaginable decision to remove Remy from life support. Ashley stated, "We had no choice but to stop the machines and accept that the Lord had a bigger and better plans for her." After the family members gathered and said their goodbyes, Matt cradled his daughter in his arms and a respiratory therapist removed her ventilator. At 114 days old, Remi Joan Cowan took her last breath and died in her daddy's arms. After her passing, Remy's tiny body was sent for an autopsy. You guys, just imagine leaving one day as parents of 4 beautiful girls, and the next time you step through the door, only 3 remain. It's just wild. The funeral for Ashley and Matt's tiny, precious daughter took place on Friday, June 14, 2019 at 2 p.m. at Saunders Mortuary in Williamsport, after which she was buried. While Matt and Ashley were caught in a whirlwind of grief and medical activity on June 6, detectives interviewed the babysitter Megan Borges. Megan told them that Remy had been spitting up profusely that day. Around 2 p.m., Megan said she herself grew tired and decided to take a nap in her bed with Callie. She put Remy down to sleep on her stomach on a day bed that was in Megan's bedroom. So Megan had her own bed, but then there was also a day bed in her room as well, as I understand it. Megan told investigators she set her alarm for around 4 p.m. because she knew either Ashley or Matt would arrive soon thereafter to pick the kids up. When she awoke, she told the police she found little Remy purple and not breathing. At that point, Megan called Ashley. After their daughter's death, Matt and Ashley struggled to make sense of the babysitter's story. They had provided Megan with a rock and play for Remy to sleep in. The daybed that she spoke about usually was covered in piles of clothes and was located all the way on the other side of the room from Megan's bed, as opposed to the rock and play, which was portable, so she could have just put that right next to the bed. So it just wasn't adding up to them. Remy was used to sleeping in this rock and play, so this was nothing unusual, as she did the same at home. Megan, the babysitter, had reported that Remy was spitting up a lot, so it raised questions about why she would place the 16-week-old infant out of sight and nap for 2 hours.
This babysitter who's getting paid to watch our kids decides to take a nap. It's like, if I'm in the medical field, and if I decide to take a nap on my watch or on the hospital's watch, I would lose my job if a patient died because of me.
And what I couldn't find is, what was the older child doing as well? Was she running around? Was she napping at that time as well? Because 2 p.m. seems a little bit late, but different kids do different nap times, so I don't know. What's crazy is after a while, they would eventually find out that Megan had more of a troubled past, which the Cohens wish they had known about sooner. In 2019, Megan faced charges for hindering apprehension or prosecution. She pled guilty and received a sentence of confinement for 2 days to 12 months and a maximum of 6 months probation. Megan stayed out of trouble for several years, but had a significant legal incident in 2000 2008, facing charges like burglary and forgery. After pleading guilty to burglary, Megan received a 12-month sentence in an intermediate punishment program, IPP, designed for drug and alcohol-related crimes. It's considered less restrictive than jail. After Remy's death, the Cohens investigated further. They questioned the detective's work, finding inadequacies. The detective only interviewed Megan once and didn't challenge her statements. They didn't inquire about the new babysitter who looked after Remy and Kelly on Monday, the day before. The babysitter claimed Remy was vomiting, but the coroner's report contradicted this. Although I don't have the full coroner's report, so I'm not sure what the actual cause was. The Cohens questioned why the detective didn't consult the doctor who had seen Remy recently or their mom who cared for her the night before. Despite Megan's history of drug use, the Cohens were told she was clean when she was hired. After Remy's death, they asked if they could get a drug test, but it couldn't be done as Megan would test positive for a synthetic opioid. It seems like an attempt to deny any fault. Ashley's mom never responded to anything and the family never received an apology, nothing, or an acknowledgement of guilt at all. Ashley posted on Facebook about, Megan and in what surrounding it, and the son messaged her asking her to remove his mom from her pages, claiming she shouldn't shame her at all because it wasn't her fault. Till date, Megan roams around scot-free without any repercussions at all for her actions, while the Cohens continue to grieve over their daughter's loss. But what is your thoughts on Remy's death? I am on the fence with this one. Does Megan deserve to pay for Remy's loss? Was it an accident? And ultimately, which punishment would be befitting for a criminal who has never gone punished for this crime? I just don't know. I feel like I don't have the whole story. This didn't go to court. You're piecing together news reports and Facebook messages. And so it's really hard to really narrow down and get both sides of the story. So on one hand, I don't think we have the full story, but with the information that we have, it just seems like it was just an accident, but I don't know. It could be neglect. I don't feel like it was intentional, but and there's also the possibility of SIDS. Like, you just don't know. Like I mentioned, I couldn't find the full autopsy report either, so there's that big question mark there. I don't know, you guys. I really, really, really want to hear your guys' comments down below. Let's leave a pink heart in the comments for little Remy and her surviving family, who were completely blindsided by their loss of little Remy. Thanks to all my channel members and my Patreons who continue to support me. If you would like early access to new videos or decide the cases I cover next, you can do so by clicking the join button from your desktop. Well, if you have made it to the end, you are a rock star, and I love you to death. There are more true crime cases in my Crimey Cases playlist for you to check out. Stay safe, my loves, and remember, if you see something, say something. Bye.